Welcome everybody joining us live from Brussels as we come up to midday or just after midday for this warm-up session for what will be the EHFF on the 4th of November. Is it the 3rd or 4th? It's one of those 2 days. 3rd of November, and which is going to be a fantastic event. Anyway, look, great to have so many people coming in and listening to this event, and we've got some fantastic speakers who are live here with us in Brussels, and this is all the culmination of so much work during this COVID time of keeping things going and keeping people active. And as you listen to people today, I think we'll be drawing back to those manifesto pledges that we've all made and where we're trying to drive this industry forward with the data to prove that we're getting there or how we're going to get there. So that focused on health, the community, the digital, and our standards. Everything wraps around those, and we together can make that enormous difference. But things like this event are actually completely impossible without the support of so many people. So as president of EuropeActive, I get the great pleasure of thanking those people and meeting those people and seeing the effort that they put in. So just to go through those, we have we have an operator council and we have a supplier council, and the CEOs and leaders of those not only commit their time, their ideas, their thoughts in terms of driving their energy, but of course the money, which makes it possible for us to get behind those reports and make it different. I've been in Brussels now for 2 days, and it's been really exciting catching up with the staff after a year. First time seeing the staff, and gosh, what a set of people. They work flat out just trying to drive forward the message and listen to what you're saying and get more professional with it. So I would really ask today, this is the warm-up session for the main event, and it's going to be an outstanding day. I'm already excited. We all know when Dave's talking gets excited, those two hands come out. They used to be called emus, but now they're just hands, and they drive us forward. So I want us to go forward with today. We've got Herman, who I'm going to hand over to second. Everyone knows Herman, and he's going to lead us through introducing some speakers and the various topics. And then there are live sessions, there are recorded sessions, and we drive the agenda forward together. More people, more active, more often. Those 4 pillars, I'll test you on them every time we speak. But without further ado, what I'm going to do is hand over to Herman for what is going to be a fantastic day. Herman.
Thank you, David, for these enthusiastic welcome words. I must say that we call it a warm-up today for the EHFF on November 3rd, and it is a warm day, I can tell you. In Brussels today, 30 degrees Celsius, and it's getting warmer by the minute, and in this studio it's pretty warm as well. I would like to briefly describe to you what we're going to do in the next hour. First, I will introduce in a minute Stefan Ludwig from Deloitte, who will give about a half-hour presentation on the latest findings on the reopening of the fitness industry in Europe. Then I will have a few Q&A session with Martin Seibold from LifeFit Group in Germany, one of the leading operators in Germany. And last but not least, we will be joined live from Italy, from Cesena, the Wellness Valley, by Nerio Alessandri, the founder and president of Technogym, for the introduction of the book that will be officially launched today. So, in the meantime, Stefan has joined me here at the podium. Welcome, Stefan, all the way from Düsseldorf this morning. You made it. Traffic was not too bad. And I think it's very good that you're here live, because you have some interesting information to share with us. And I know you've been burning the midnight oil, and your team, in putting together, based on available information, how has the reopening been so far in our industry. And I would like to pass the parole to you and ask you to present your findings and some conclusions in the next half hour or so. So over to you, Stefan.
Thank you, Herman. And a very warm welcome also from my side. Me personally, Stefan Ludwig. I'm a partner at Deloitte, leading the sports business group, which has been working in the fitness sector for more than 20 years, but also warm welcome from the entire Deloitte family. What I've brought with me is an enormous amount of data and information, which I would like to take you through in the next 25 to 30 minutes. The presentation will be available after this session on the EuropeActive website, so don't worry about taking notes. You can for sure download it from the website and have a deeper look and a more insight look into the data and the information. Let's get started. As you know, we are regularly doing on a yearly basis the European Fitness Market Report, which shows the numbers at the end of each year. The last one was with great challenge, also published in summer this year, showing the development of the first wave of the pandemic in 2020. But now we have taken a deeper look into the more recent developments of the last 6 months or the first 6 months of 2021. And there are also some very interesting findings and information, but also a lot of positive indications for the industry based on developments in countries, but also based on developments of individual operators and equipment providers. What you can expect is, as always, a data-driven piece of information from your Deloitte experts. We'll have a brief review on the development over the last 5 years and the initial impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on 2020. We'll recapture what has been going on in terms of lockdowns in the different countries where different operators and stakeholders of the fitness industry have been impacted, also in the 2021 year. We'll look at some survey results, in particular regarding consumer behavior, consumer perception, but also expectations and behavior of people with respect to fitness club usage, but also digital usage. We'll have a few selected countries where we do have very recent data, which gives very interesting insights. And last but not least, there is data available from publicly listed companies where we also see some of the most recent developments, even going up to the month of July and August. Then eventually I'll sum it up and hand it back over to Hermann. So let's jump into the numbers. The ones you know already, or many of you know already, are the membership development and the revenue development over the past 5 years in our European health and fitness industry. Everybody remembers there was a continuous growth over the last year with an average annual growth rate of up to 5%. And then the pandemic came and we saw a reduction in membership of 15% compared to year-end 2020, and a reduction in revenue of even up to 30%. The situation in the different European countries is very diverse, depending on the government regulations, depending on the time of the lockdown, and also other aspects, such as the business model. Do you have long-term contracts, annual or 2-year contracts, or do you have monthly contracts, which can be cancelled much easier? Also, do not forget, in this data, we still have in 2020 2 months of significant growth, because the industry was on a growth path. So the month of January and February in 2020 were still very important for the industry, with an ongoing trend which we have seen in the past years. So actually the number at the end of February or mid of March, when the pandemic actually hit the entire society and all around the globe, the numbers of membership and revenue will surely be higher than the 65 in the end of 2019, the 65 million members. From then on, there was the reduction. And it continued during the entire year with several lockdowns or different time periods of lockdowns. So we had a much lower point of membership and revenue at the end of 2020. And then actually, the situation got even worse because the very important month of January, February, March in 2021 were still, in most countries, with the exception of Sweden, were still hit by a lockdown. So no new joiners, but still cancellations were ongoing. As you can see from that chart, the situation is very different in various countries, but overall, the reopening then started in March, April, May, and even some countries only in June. And this is something you have to keep in mind when you compare the numbers of, for example, operators operating in different countries, or if you compare numbers of different countries themselves. There are some positive indications in the market, and one of the ongoing research Deloitte was conducting on a monthly basis since the beginning of the pandemic in April was consumer behavior research. And one of the questions was, do I feel safe going to a store? And on the left-hand side of each of those charts from the 8 countries selected, you can see the starting point. So people were really unsafe. They were anxious going to stores at the beginning of the pandemic, with figures like 39% or 36% in France and Germany. But this continuously improved with increasing vaccination, with increased safety measures in the different providers of stores, but also in terms of the fitness segment. Over the last 2 months, we have seen a little bit a flattening out of the development. So June, July, August, there was not a similar positive development like in the month before. There are a couple of reasons. Infection numbers increased again. There was another concern. There were also some regulations being more strict again. So people kept that level, but have not improved their safety perception again over those months. But overall, a general positive trend. Another positive information, according to our research conducted in February and March 2021, is the feedback we are receiving from consumers about their fitness behavior. So one question on the left-hand side was, how willing are you to join or to go into a fitness club? The column on the left-hand side is pre-pandemic, in the middle is during the pandemic, and on the right-hand side is after the pandemic. So there's a clear indication that people will go back to their behavior, to their normal activities as they used to have pre the COVID pandemic situation. On the right-hand side, the chart also shows a very important information because there's a lot of buzz, a lot of discussion about what's the impact of the digital offering. Yes, of course. As there was no alternative during the lockdown, people used more digital offerings in the fitness segment. But once again, there seems to be a return to normal levels, more or less, after the pandemic. That's at least the expectation, and everybody can now look at himself or herself. Are you fed up with Zoom conferences? After a business day, do you want to have a Zoom fitness class, or would you rather like to go back to your fitness club and see some of your fellows, some of your friends, and some of the other fitness activists? So positive indications from those consumer research results. Now, what happened over the first 6 months or the last 8 months in 2021? And just very, very recently, and we very much appreciate that we can show those numbers as they were just published by DSSV in combination with the university and the magazine Fitness Management on development in the German market on a quarterly basis. You can see March 21, still a significant reduction in members in German fitness clubs. Then there is an increase in June, but keep in mind, Germany had a lockdown until the mid of May, and in some states even longer than that. So that recovery was only managed within 1 month, which I think is a really impressive figure, and numbers seem to go up. There's a positive perception from the operators. They are signing up new joiners again. Cancellations are reducing. However, in that publication and the press statement of DSSV, they also made aware of the challenges which might come due to a stricter regulation, as, for example, the proof of being tested, vaccinated, or recovered from a COVID-19 case. And that concern is certainly with good reason, because we can see an impact in France. And let me explain those two charts which we have decided to show you in this case. That's recent information from a study by a research company called Resamania. On the left-hand side, you see the change in number of joiners compared to the same month in 2019. And let's stick to that chart before I go to the other chart. What you can see is in June 2020, there was still a reduction of new joiners compared to 2019. Then in 2021, there was a significant increase by 50% of new joiners compared to the same month in 2019. That number reduced in July, and there was actually a turning point. So that shows the number in August, where 30% less new joiners were signed in fitness clubs in France. What's the reason? The reason, according to many explanations from French operators, is the pass sanitaire. The pass sanitaire is a regulation by the government which forces fitness club operators to prove or to have the proof of their members when they enter a fitness club to be either tested, vaccinated, or recovered from a case. So at least the perception in the population is that's another barrier for us. And that is certainly a challenge. And that's what DSSV also mentioned in their press release. You can see a similar indication or a similar development in the number of cancellations. Compared to 2019, the cancellations were reduced in 2021 in June and July compared to 2020, but still above the level of 2019. And in August, cancellations increased again. So this is definitely a challenge for the industry. And one of the things everyone in his or her country needs to lobby on and work with the government representatives to find solutions which are also acceptable from a business point of view. Spain shows a much more positive picture. There was no additional regulations over the last couple of months. It was even the case in Spain that lockdowns were to a certain extent only regionally. And you can see in the development of those numbers provided by Fitness KPI from Spain that the leavers have significantly reduced. The joiners are above levels of 2019. And also the check-ins are coming back to a normal level in those fitness clubs which provided data for that analysis in Spain. Switzerland recently published their report, also very interesting because of the date. They conducted the research and they collected the numbers because they have a May 21 number compared to end of year December 19 and May 19. Of course, there was the reduction in members, but in this case, May was the reopening in Switzerland, or actually some parts was even in April. And the expectation for year-end 21 is very positive from those operators which were asked in that piece of research. So they're expecting to bounce back to end of December 20 numbers and almost there at mid of 2019, and hoping to continue that development then in the month following. So hopefully being back in 2020 at normal levels. On the right-hand side, also interesting, we looked at that in other countries, average number of check-ins. Less people are coming more often. As we've heard, the motto, more active, plays a very important role. So people who have returned to the club seem to be more active in their sports activities. So if you extrapolate that with an increasing number of members, that might also be a positive indication for the fitness industry. Now looking at some of the companies which we could analyze and where data was available. Let's go to Basic Fit, one of the European operators hit by different regulations. So they had to adjust on a country-by-country basis their strategy. And as you can see, March 21 numbers were significantly almost 30% below March 20 numbers, and also below December 19, so pre-COVID numbers. Once again, as I mentioned earlier, that was surely not the lowest point of average members per club, because there was still the month of April and the month of May in some of the countries where Basic Fit is operating, where lockdowns were still in place and no new joiners, but still cancellations. So once again, even more impressive, the bounce back, the rebound in June 21 with, in most countries, only 1 month for recovery. The 4% is compared to March 21. So actually the increase must have been significantly higher. And Basic Fit already announced that they will keep their expansion plans. They will still newly open a significant number of clubs in the countries where they are operating. Going to the UK with the Gym Group and later on Pure Gym, different situation. As I mentioned earlier, different time of lockdown, but also in that respect, very important, different business model. Whereas, for example, in Germany, you have yearly or 2-year contracts on a membership basis. Very often in the UK, you have monthly memberships with the opportunity to cancel much quicker or to freeze the respective membership. So there was a more significant drop of up to 40% compared from March 20 to February 21. Then UK reopened in April, and there was an impressive rebound in those clubs, both on a membership level, but also, as you can see on the right-hand side, on the number of check-ins or number of visits. People, once again, seem to be more active than they used to be pre-pandemic. Pure Gym not hit as hard as the Gym Group because of their diversification with operations also in Denmark and Switzerland, with where the situation also from a membership contractual point of view is different. And both operators, they continue to open new clubs. So also here, group visits increased, although the membership level is not back to pre-COVID time. SATS Group, they benefited most from the situation in Sweden, where there was no lockdown, and also in other Scandinavian countries, they handled the situation differently than most continental European countries. So there was a decrease. Of course, people were also concerned in the Scandinavian countries. There was a lockdown in certain countries where SATS operates, but not as significant as, for example, Basic Fit or the Gym Group or Pure Gym. And also rebounding, as you can see, with a 2% increase from March to June 21. More interesting or more positive, again, for the industry is the visits per activated members. Also here, a clear indication, people seem to work out more often. People want to go back to their normal fitness routines, and some of them even are more motivated than they used to be. Quick view on one other operators and a multi-sports card business benefit based in Poland and active in various Eastern European countries. David Lloyd at least announced in the press release that they are back to pre-pandemic levels in August. So that is a very impressive development. Whereas Benefit Systems, once again, it's not an operator, it's like an aggregator, a multi-sports card provider. They also suffered from the development. Like many aggregators, there is the issue of short-term contracts in some countries. And finally, a quick look at some of the equipment providers, Technogym and Nautilus. Technogym, both B2C and B2B. Nautilus focused on the end consumer level versus direct sales or retail sales. Technogym also bouncing back, also a good indication. Operators are leasing new equipment again, are buying new equipment again. But as you can see on the left-hand side at the Technogym chart in half year 2021, there's a stronger growth in the B2C segment than in the B2B segment. And that is basically confirmed by the development of Nautilus with a significant increase in the B2C segment. So people locked down or at their home, they started purchasing new equipment for their home activities. And a quick look into the digital activities or the digital sector of the fitness industry. I'm sure you have all seen those numbers, also the development of the market value of Peloton, significant increase over the last 2 years. However, there is a perception in the market that this does not necessarily substitute a membership, but is an add-on to also a membership in a fitness club. What we have also seen, and we were involved in a number of transactions over the last 18 months, and also activities of private equity companies looking at the fitness industry, there's still a continuous interest in this market because the fundamentals, as we believe, are still there. There is a health consciousness, there is an interest in sport, there is an offering in the market, an offering which is very diverse, and there are new players in the market which are also attracting money from investors and financiers. In the first 2 quarters illustrated here, so quarter 1 in 21 and quarter 2 in 21, we saw more of securing a finance, securing liquidity during that challenging time. But also, in particular, in the second quarter of 2021, if you look at Gympass and Pro7 Sat.1, who acquired shares in Urban Sports Club, there was already investment in a growth strategy. And that's what we have been seeing in the last 2 to 3 months. The Gym Group, Aspria, or also Sport Alliance, a fitness software, were acquired or received funding from the capital markets, from the private equity industry for further growth. So there is expectations in the market that there is a return, and as we have seen in some of the numbers, there is a clear proof of that people are going back, members are joining, the activity level is increasing again. So overall, the signs are more or less positive. So what are the key takeaways before I hand back to Hermann for his discussion? As already mentioned, check-in, there is a positive development in the level of activity in the clubs who are open, who have their members returned. Membership development, also on a country level, you could see, but also on an operator level, there's a significant rebound in some of the countries and some of the operators. However, if I go to the last point, actually, the COVID-19 issues, there is some sort of concern about additional regulations and, of course, of another possible wave, which has an impact on some of those developments, as we have seen in the case of France or as we have seen in some other operator data. And last but not least, the digital offering, it's there to stay, but the operators have used the time to increase their skills, increase their offering, and we see a more hybrid model, in particular when it comes to brick and mortar and digital offerings in the industry. As I said, the data is available for a download on the EuropeActive website. And with that, I'll give it back to Hermann.
Thank you very much. Vielen Dank, Stefan. It's always interesting to see from a reliable source like you how quickly we're rebounding in our industry. And it's just an interim moment of time that you've made this analysis. Of course, at the end of this calendar year, when we start making the report, the full European report with you for 2021, we will be able to draw more conclusions as to how successful the rebound has been, and we will have a full picture of 2021. But this gives already a very good glimpse of where it's heading, provided, of course, we will have no further lockdowns and the COVID situation will not worsen. So I thank you for that. I would now like to ask Martin Seibold to come up to the podium. And so I have a few questions for Martin. How he sees some of the things that Stefan just presented. Hi, Stefan. Thank you, Stefan. Martin, we've known each other for some time. You are very young, but still a very experienced man in our industry, in multiple countries and in multiple parts of our industry. But having just seen the presentation from Stefan, I would like to ask you, because you operate with LifeFit Group in multiple parts of the ecosystem of our industry, how do you see the rebound taking place, and what challenges do you see in terms of going back to the pre-COVID levels? Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, of course. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me, and it's great to be here in Brussels. But more important, EuropeActive have been a really lifesaver in the last 15 months, next to many others, because at best it was bad times. In reality, there were some really horrible moments. So, despite the good things we're coming out of it, and we've just heard that, this has been a challenging time. I've been fortunate enough to be able to travel in the last 4 to 6 weeks around Holland, Denmark, UK, England, and Germany, meeting a lot of association, industry, investors, other operators. And I have to say, their sheer energy and their enthusiasm for this industry is incredible. So I'm actually really fired up, full of energy, looking forward. And these numbers we've just seen and the development is a testament to this incredible industry. So we operate around various different market segments. So we have the premium budget with an operation around 30-40 clubs, and we've seen 20% membership loss there. And we've seen a very good, stable recovery. So probably 5-6% we've got back here. In the mid-market, upper mid-market, which we operate with Fitness First in Germany, we have seen a 30% membership loss. And on the other hand, we have seen an amazing return. So we are talking 140, 150% of joiner volume and significantly less leavers. So ultimately, we see the market has dropped faster, but recovery is coming back also faster. And then we see the premium segment with our brands Elbgym and Barry's Bootcamp. And those have been, again, lower membership losses and more a slower but stable recovery.
Yeah, interesting. How about the engagement through video on demand and digital usage of your members in your clubs? How has that been developing since the reopening?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you're lucky in life and sometimes you're not so lucky. So at the LifeFit Group, we were quite lucky that we understood digital is important. So we had our websites, our digital offerings already set up. So when COVID hit us, we could move there. We saw around 35% of members immediately taking up the classes. And like many, we saw some class numbers digitally as big as the numbers we have had in the gyms, actually in physical attendance. So we've seen that. But I guess more importantly, going forward, next to the content the members will continue to use, whether it's via our delivery channels in our apps or via YouTube and many other great other companies, I guess the whole digitalization in a company is important. So we use the opportunity to take the digital side. We had 15% of joiners pre-COVID, and we now have 95% of our joiners after COVID. So cancellation, the German law is changing. You need to actually have a button for cancellation on your website as of summer next year. So we're getting ready to do all this. So all these changes have enabled us to actually become even more focused on the consumer rather than on processes.
Yeah. In terms of the looking, it's not yet looking back on COVID because we're still in it. But looking at what has happened in the last year and a half for you personally and for you, your company and your teams, how would you like to sum up the major things that have impacted you from a strategy point of view, from an operational point of view? Could you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, so we look at everything in like our P's, Don't get too excited about it at this moment in time. Yeah, when I see you smile. So we look at people, our portfolio, our product, our price and marketing, our processes. And ultimately, we had to realize that some of our portfolio investments, had to be re-established. Particularly you're paying rent for locations, you now don't have revenue. So ultimately we looked at that. We took some hard decisions to get rid of them, but also we took them to move between the brands. So we actually changed 6 mid-market locations into a premium budget. And the original, like the numbers afterwards have shown this was the right decision. So with the portfolio, we are now able to move things around. From a people point of view, it was very hard for the teams because they are very enthusiastic, want to work with the consumer. And they couldn't. They were stayed at home, the government funded it. And then people, after the first lockdown, they came all back fired up. And then the second lockdown happened, as in all the European countries. So ultimately, people have made now a decision they either stay in the industry or they move out. So a lot of people have moved back into original jobs they might have had. So at the moment, you're getting a lot of young people coming in because they're not so absorbed with kind of worries and have to fund a family. So we're getting a real bunch of energetic, fitness-orientated people coming in. So it's a huge opportunity. At the same time, you need to make sure you can staff your clubs, you can open that. We were lucky we can, but ultimately it is on the staffing side. Price and marketing has been the biggest transformation going digital. Also, the consumer has changed. The consumer with the whole digital, we see it in the shopping, but we see it in the industry. They do everything online now. So you need to get ready for this. And I know many of you are actually doing that. And then our processes, significant changes in the IT world, in the reporting world, in the setups. You cannot basically really see the company again like it's a complete new company in these setup, in these worlds. So I think if you haven't done that yet, that's the moment to do it now.
In terms of we've seen the numbers just a minute ago in terms of how much the membership dropped. Of course, in Germany, many operators have been able to continue to bill the membership on a monthly basis to their members, but that needs to be compensated later. How do you see the fallout of this crisis? Do you think the fallout has already happened, or do you think there will be fallout coming later this year or next year?
I think the fallout has happened. I think people who had a membership and they're not allowed to use this. In the first lockdown, we saw low cancellation levels, and we actually saw huge hesitant people coming back. Now we've had a bigger fallout after the lockdown, and we've seen the numbers from Deloitte. You had visitation of 1.2 beforehand, now you have 1.4. So we really have members in the gym who want to use the gym, and we've seen it on the visitation overall. Despite 25% less members, you're almost at the same visitation levels like you were the years before. Yeah. So ultimately I feel we have seen the fallout, and now it's about the opportunity this gives us going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think also in Germany, the government has been pretty good in helping to subsidize paying on the wages, as happened in other countries. And of course, other countries were less fortunate in terms of having that support. So the fallout has been more significant.
Yeah, and I think this has been something unique in Europe. First, most companies like us, they continue to build the members. Of course, in the second lockdown, you had 70-80% on a freeze. So the billing was slower. Yeah. But I originally predicted that there will be like 15 to 25% of gyms less after the COVID. And I was wrong. Because the government really stepped in and has so much funding, not just for people working, but also for a loss of revenue. So you get, if you had a business running, you get 70%, up to 70% back. So ultimately, a lot of business will survive, which is great for the industry going forward. So I think, it was good to be wrong here. And now we see that, the industry can really come back.
I think your prediction was right for the US. There, I think 25% of clubs had to close their doors.
And of course we know why, because they weren't supporting the industry as well.
Exactly. Government didn't step in as much to support the industry as.
And I've seen in many European countries and the friends we have out here that there has been also support from the government in some way or form, whether it's on the fixed costs on the rents or in other areas. So I think we've been quite blessed in a way compared to other areas in the world.
Big government does have its advantages, as we see in the comparison between the US and Europe in that sense.
Let's not make it political.
I'm a diplomat, not a politician. I try to.
You are, but I'm struggling.
I try to be as well. And if we look at the impact overall, we hear about health, we hear about wellness. People who are fit are less likely to be contaminated. How do you see that being a positive impact for our industry in the years to come?
Well, look, I think this industry has been amazing. When the stock market crashed many, many moons ago, this industry has been one of the few who actually continued delivering membership growth and revenue growth. And now we've seen those dips, and I've just told you how the operators around Europe are thinking. I think the general tailwinds this industry have not weakened, they have actually strengthened. So, people, the health focus on the immune system is even bigger than it ever has been. Germans have gained a lot of weight, I know, around Europe, but I don't want to comment on that. 5.7 kilogram on an average of 70 kilos. That's a lot of weight gain. Yeah. Male have been even worse, than female. So that's fantastic for us as an industry. And then the lack of community, we shouldn't forget, this is all, we are not just a provider of equipment in a gym. We are part of, in Germany, fitness is actually bigger than football from a membership point of view as a sport. So it's the biggest sport. So the lack of community. So I'm hugely positive. But having heard Deloitte just now, and knowing that, EuropeActive wants to have 100 million members in 2030. So Germany has to be on a run rate of something like 15 million members in 2025 to support, as the biggest market in Europe, this kind of goal. And we will. Despite this 9 million we only have at the moment, we used to have 11. So I think, there will be a huge focus on this. And how will this be supported? When you look at the money deployed in the market in a crisis, what we just saw, this is staggering. I mean, this is not small money. This is big money. We are talking about flotations of some more companies coming our way. So I think, when you're in a situation when your revenue drops like a hot knife goes through butter, and then people still invest, that's just amazing.
Yeah, if you follow the stock market, where fitness clubs are now more and more on the stock market, we had in the US 5 IPOs in the last couple of months.
Yes.
One in Brazil with SmartFit. In Europe, we can follow the stock development of the stock market listed companies.
Yeah, we had Exponential, which is our friends, big franchise company.
Not to forget that one.
Where we have lots of franchises for Germany.
But if you look, all the stocks have been recovered from pre-COVID levels and beyond. So that must mean something about the confidence also that investors have in our sector. In terms of the health impact, we talked about that. If we look at the public policy of our industry in terms of talking to governments, talking to the medical community, do you think we're doing enough of that? Do you think and I'm almost kicking in an open door here, but do you think there needs to be more to advocate really our sector as a necessity, as an essential business for society?
Well, there can only be one answer, and that's yes. And of course, we've seen some other regions in the world where the government is supporting, whether you look in some African countries or even the Nordic, where you have also 20% plus support. You have health insurances, supportive. So I think we need to really, everyone, and me included, who has been an industry leader for many years, 20 plus years, we have to look at ourselves and go, we missed the trick here. And we have to take responsibility, and what we have to leave, when we go 5-10 years, which I have at least, Herman, I don't know about yourself, probably 10, 15, by the energy you have. So, but we need to leave a heritage that we have fixed this. Yeah. This is our problem. We haven't done this right. We can't leave it to the young people. We need to really do this now, step up. And EuropeActive has been, in the last 2 years, been a massive change to how we actually approach it here in Brussels too.
Yeah, no, I don't have to take credit for that. I think that the effort goes to the team in EuropeActive, who've done a fantastic job. And I think work is on the way right now. We just saw yesterday the publication by EuropeActive of the numbers on COVID, how many people were affected by COVID in the gyms. It was 1 in 100,000. There's 160 times more likely to catch COVID if you're not fit. So it's huge. And we will have some numbers to be published by EuropeActive next month on, I think, another 50 million visits in the continental Europe market. So I think all of those numbers and the research will support the message that we're trying to convey in terms of this industry is a necessity, and it never should, again, close down fitness clubs because of COVID. It should be the contrary, keep them open.
Yeah, and I think, look, will there be national lockdowns in countries? Let's see, we just see them in Asia and Australia at the moment, where we have good friends down there. But ultimately, the vaccination levels and the people who had COVID here in Europe, they're higher. Yeah. And I think, we will see probably regional things. But there are, problems coming our way. So we are still in COVID. We're probably still in COVID for another 1.5 years. So hence our prediction, I've seen David Lloyd having, membership levels like pre-COVID. We are not here yet. And we see this coming slower. Yeah. So we predict end of 2022 membership levels. But then we also think, revenue will come back faster because we are yielding higher. And obviously our bottom line will be significantly higher. Yeah. But, with all the, what we see in France, that you have now with the requirements to participate in sport and fitness, this is coming Europe's way. This will come. So you need to get ready for this. And we have one region in Germany where we have those situations, and our numbers there, luckily, maybe down to the way we approach it, are not much different to the rest of Germany. So ultimately, we have a test market up in the north where we have about 15 clubs. So we feel quite safe, but there will be obstacles coming our way the next 9 to 15 months.
Yeah, it was quite clear from the numbers that were presented by Stefan on the French situation that the pass sanitaire definitely
Yeah, but Hamburg
didn't help.
shows us
Hamburg shows
we
the
don't
same
have
thing.
it. No, it shows the difference.
So it's the difference.
So completely different. It trades as good as Munich, as
Okay.
as Frankfurt. So it has a lot to do how the society approaches it.
Yeah. Well, there's some lessons to be learned there. It's now 12:51. We're supposed to be online with Cesena in Italy with Nero Alessandri. I hear that's why I'm looking at my earpiece here, that I don't think we have a connection yet. Is there anything you would like to, let's say, still we have some minutes time to bring up or ask me or ask?
I'm happy to jump in to talk a bit more. I think what's it, one of the...
I just hear we have three more minutes for Nero to join us.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Let me put the time on.
Yeah.
Here you go. Now, look, I think the segmentation in the market is something which is extraordinary opportunity for everyone. You know, we see, of course, the low cost, they're writing the story here at the moment with this, going on stock with a lot of capital behind. But we shouldn't forget that the actual main part of the market is not the low cost segment. You know, there's a new bubble above it, which is the premium budget, which is extremely successful in some regions in the world. Particularly, that's why we are going very good here. There's a lot of opportunities for M&A for out there in the market, and we should be able to announce some of these as a Life It Group soon. And then the mid-market, which is like the beaten up person, it's the biggest part of the market. You know, and when you have a 2 or 3% growth there, it's still bigger than a 20% growth in some of the other market segments. So we shouldn't forget that. So I think clearly, we are dedicated to continue to create a great product here. And then you have the other market segments, where it's all about, even pay-as-you-go models and all this. And they have been resistant despite these times. So ultimately, I feel, everybody working in the industry, if you segment your offering, you have a better chance. I talked about moving from the mid-market to the premium budget, and this is successful. But if you are a smaller company growing, you maybe pick one area and really go for it. I think that's something I would say this is the learning we've had. So we are set up as a multi-brand operator. So we will take the one where the market is moving. So all the market segments which are really growing fast, this is where we're going to go. Yeah. And I think the last thing I would say, hang in there. This industry, has been hit hard, but there were moments like this similar, not as big potentially. And, I like this, the picture of a phoenix coming out the ashes. I really think this is something. And what I've seen internationally, this is what I think will gonna happen to this industry. So I'm hugely happy to be part of it and to be supportive. At this moment in time.
Same here. In terms of the resilience of the entrepreneurs has been phenomenal. I think nobody was prepared for this crisis to hit us the way it did. And a lot of very, very bright people responded very quickly. You mentioned digitalization, the hybrid solution for our industry. People had to reinvent themselves overnight. And I think innovation took place that otherwise would have taken maybe a couple of years, that now took place in a matter of months.
And it accelerated.
And it accelerated the thinking and accelerated people to think, hey, fitness is not just within four walls of a club. I can do it at home. I can do it on the road. And that is, I think, something that, of course, will stay with us and will continue to make the ecosystem of our sector larger and more encompassing. And that is a positive thing.
And incredibly, it's the people who work in this industry. Yeah. I mean, our staff have been nothing but spectacular. Yeah. Whether it's the influx in the head offices which they have to cope, or the times off from work and coming back in the front line. And I know this has been a huge thing across the organization. So this is an interesting moment, but we will look back in 5 years' time and go, okay, this was for the better. We've reinvented ourselves and we have a better product fitting the consumer better, and that's what is at the end of the day all about.
Yeah, sometimes what's the Chinese saying? Crisis creates opportunity.
And I think we see this in this industry, and we've demonstrated this already.
Yeah. Okay, Martin. I think we're almost going to be online with Italy. I see Nerio. I see Nerio on the screen.
Cool.
Hi, Nerio. Buongiorno. I do not hear you yet, so we need to get the sound up and running. I'm just waiting for the technician to solve the sound issue because we see Nerio, but we can't hear him.
It's open.
It's open?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I hear you. Hi, Nerio. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today, to celebrate and to inaugurate. I'll just take a copy. This fantastic book that you have it there. There we go. We have the same book with the phenomenal.
Congratulations! It's amazing work. We are proud to support this book every year. Is the last 5 edition?
No, Nerio. This is number 7.
7. Wow.
You have supported us with 7 books in the last 7 European Health and Fitness Forums. There you go, Technogym and the Wellness Foundation. It's really great that you do this, and without your support, we would not have been able to make again this book. So today is the official launch. Would you like to say a few words to commemorate that to us all?
Yes, thank you. The few words. Is the technology mission, vision, strategy is focused on 360-degree innovation to support and to grow the entire industry. Is our focus. Our focus is to help the industry and to support the industry. And this is the example through the book and the education and through technology innovation, digital innovation, business model innovation, design and service innovation. We are the first in the world to create an Apple-like ecosystem, our ecosystem. And Technogym team, our resource, the Technogym team, our focus is to success of our partner. We want to create the long-term partnership with operator based on trust, consultancy, education, support. Herman, is our focus. Our success, the success of our customer is our success, is our mantra every day.
Yeah, well, that's a very good way of putting what you're doing for the industry. I'm trying to look in the camera now. I see you on the left-hand side, but my camera, I'm told I need to be looking that side, so I'm doing that. In terms of the book, of course, when my co-editor Jan Middelkamp and I started the preparation for this book in September last year, we were in the middle of COVID, and really the choice for operational excellence and transformative leadership was really based on all the things that were happening. And you as a company, you may have seen earlier that Stefan Ludwig showed some numbers on Technogym and how fantastic you as a company have recovered through the crisis and have been very, let's say, smart in developing new things to help your customers and to help the consumer to be more active more often. So you've been fantastic in doing that. And in terms of the continued sponsorship for these publications, we hope that by this book and by the message that you have written in this book, we will be able to help people to think out of the box and to be more creative in their business. Now, talking about operational excellence and transformative leadership as theme for the book, can you explain a little bit from you personally, from your view on how this crisis evolved and how you dealt with it for leaders in general or for the specific for the fitness industry? What is the impact of COVID for all of us?
Okay, it's a huge question. It's an amazing question. But okay, I think for everybody, the priority is to transform our company, to transform our business model and our methods, skills. I think that first we need people and infrastructure using digital as the enabler of the omni-channel approach, big data, analytics, customer satisfaction, content management, social media. I think the digital is the priority for everybody. The management and selection of the right talents and the new skills is key to serve the fourth industrial revolution. Is the key point. Is the fourth industrial revolution to represent the 360-degree transformation in terms of approach, competence, skills, timing, investment, priority. I think that you would like to develop our corporation, we need to create a culture, the digital culture and the omni-channel culture in terms of anytime, anywhere, and on-site and online together. I think is the right system is to create the ecosystem with strategic partners like technology, for example, in the different sector. Partnership is key. The trust is key to select the best innovation companies and very solid companies in terms of partner, I think is the key. And together, we need to think different and better to create something unique. I think we need to invest in design, in the location, to invest in education, in training. I think that in programming, I think the human capital is the key success for everybody.
Very, very wise words there. In terms of the changed consumer, do you have any comments on the attitude? Has the consumer changed in the way they approach fitness and wellness? How do you see that going forward in the coming years?
Yes, the customer insight and needs are changed, we know. I think in the top 3 new priority for the consumer, there are health, sport, and fitness, definitely. It is a huge opportunity for our industry. It's our time. We need to serve this amazing transformation for the humanity, because the COVID impact to create the sensibility about prevention, rehabilitation, sport performance, anti-stress, is the huge opportunity for us. It's our time. In this opportunity, we need the attention about content, relationship, e-commerce, sustainability. The sustainability is amazing about environment, and the attention in quality and design. The new consumer are changed about quality, experience. People, the young generation, the Z generation, they would like to live the experience. To live experience means to understand the why, the reason why, to understand the process in terms of production, quality, in terms of service. I think that the wellness on the go, our mantra, is the new model that we launched many years ago for everybody. Wellness anytime and wellness anywhere. Means to manage the hybrid lifestyle management, not only in the restaurant, for example, but also the delivery, not only online, but also offline, not only e-commerce, but also retail, not only in the club, but also in the home. The hybrid new business model is the new frontier. Offline, on-site, outdoor, indoor, at home, I think is the very important, very important change.
I can tell that you are enthusiastic as ever and have more confidence than ever in terms of the future of our industry. So thank you for that good news. Not surprisingly, by the way, but it's confirming. You're confirming the optimism that has been shared with us today in the presentation that we just saw. Nerio, thank you very much for your wise words. Thank you again for your fantastic support for the book and EuropeActive in general. And I look forward to seeing you live, face to face, hopefully within the next couple of months, and otherwise definitely at FIBO in April 2022. So I hope that we can then raise a glass together to the bright future of our sector with you and your colleagues.
Thank you.
Mille grazie.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Let's
Ciao.
move for a better world.
Yes, we will. Thank you. Ciao. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the session that I'm moderating here today. There will be a slide coming up soon in terms of showing you a website where you can order the book with a significant discount for those who have signed up for this webinar. I think the slide is coming up to the screen right now. I would like to thank you for your attention. I would like to thank Martin Seibold. I would like to thank our friend Stefan Ludwig and David Stalker for his introduction words. There is now a short break, and then I know that Jennifer Halsall de Witt will take over for this afternoon session. So thank you all very much for your attention, and see you soon again, either live or on another fantastic EuropeActive webinar. Bye-bye.
Hi, and welcome to this session on what do the new consumer behavior trends mean for the future of the fitness sector. My name is Rob Lander, and I'm co-founder of Physical, a business management platform and online educational solution for the fitness industry. I'm joined today by two esteemed professionals from the fitness industry, Grace McNamara and Ian Mullane. Grace, thank you for joining us in today's session. Grace and I have only recently met, so I thought it would be a good idea to call her and let her know and to get to know her a little bit better before today's call. So we had a call a few weeks ago, and I was super excited to hear about your experience in the fitness industry, specifically with your journey with Apple for 12 years, overseeing their corporate wellness program, and now as the CEO of Exi. As I'm sure everyone listening to the call today knows Apple, but for those that may be new to Exi, please, Grace, could you give us a short introduction to what it does?
Yeah, sure, Rob. Happy to give an introduction. Lovely to be back. So Exi is a digital platform designed for health and fitness professionals to be able to offer exercise prescription for people with long-term chronic conditions. So the goal really is to have a hybrid approach to support clinicians, support professionals in order to bring activity to the fore, ultimately make it easier to prescribe and also easier to monitor, track, trend, and support remotely. So it is thankfully a medical device as of recently as well. So it works nicely within the healthcare and health clinical industry as well as fitness industry.
Fantastic. Thank you, Grace. That's great to hear. Ian, and our other guest today, Ian Mullane. Ian, thanks for joining us on the course as well. Like Grace, I've not known Ian for long at all. However, when we did have a call we first established that we were both in Chelsea back in the early 90s, but let's not go into the details of the fun time on this call. Ian, you've been in the industry for many years. Ian founded a social media management platform called Localwise, which was acquired in 2020, and then founded and runs the AI platform called Keep Me. Ian, please tell us a little bit about Keep Me and how you use AI to help health club operators all over the world.
Sure, and thanks, Rob. So my background is predictive analytics, predominantly within the financial markets, but I also owned a fitness business for 12 years up until 2018. So back in 2018, I decided that I would see if my curiosity could be met around the data that operators hold and to see whether it was predictive. It turns out the answer is a definitive yes. And what was meant to be an in-house tool is now powering the sales and marketing efforts of operators in about 13 countries. What Keep Me does, very simply, is it consumes operator data, for example, their member management system, and then utilizing AI, specifically machine learning, it provides insights to optimize across sales, retention, and secondary spend, along with a suite of engagement tools to act in the form of campaigns and automations.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that introduction to what Keep Me does. So we've got about 45 minutes to discuss today's topic, which is what do the new digital consumer behavior trends mean for the future of the fitness sector? So I think we should jump straight in if that's okay with you guys. If we start to unpack the title of this session, this first leads us to establish what are the digital consumer trends they are before we look at how they've affected the industry. Just some points that I've noted down are, I think that people now want instant access to whatever they want, whenever they want it. Personalization, people want to really see things that will interest them and are not really bothered about everything else. Total engaging member customer journeys, giving them a supported flow from start to end. Online secure payments, the move away from cash. Live streaming, Zoom, on demand, the new hybrid model. Predicting consumer needs rather than reacting to them. This new concept of a full digital community. And influencers, celebrity trainers popping up all over the place, creating massive communities of followers and making lots of money in this space as well. Grace, starting with you, what are your thoughts here? What do you think of the new digital trends?
Yeah, I think that they're fantastic. I think we're actually at the most exciting time we have been for quite a while. I think if we look at, you're right, people want instant. They want what they want it now, and they kind of don't see any barriers to them. And thankfully, I think the industry's done a great job of taking away an awful lot of barriers that might have existed. Bricks and mortar, for example, location, access, as you mentioned, online booking and so on. And the trends have been trending for a while. COVID kicked forward some of these for sure, and have kind of forced a lot of operators to react pretty much overnight and digitalize and offering a service, a proposition. But they've done well. They're here to stay, no doubt. And look, Ian's an advocate like I am in relation to the data that's there. We can do an awful lot with it. We can help not only see the trends, but predict the trends as well. They will stay. They absolutely will stay. People have the ability now to touch a button to access what they want to access. And the industry has reacted well in the last 18 months and will continue to do so, I think. And I think where Exi comes in is, and where I think the partnership kind of model works here is being able to connect an audience that might not have typically been that audience that would go to a physical location. So meeting them where they're at, to your point exactly, it's 24/7. They may or may not want certain classes, they may not want certain activities. So what do they want, when they want it, a click of a button, and ideally having the support structure around that. I think we have a huge opportunity to use that data, and some of the work that EuropeActive is doing, around the data hub and so on is going to be really valuable to help generate more data, to use that data and use it effectively. They're here to stay. There's no doubt about it. People are people, and the other industry have seen similar trends, and they've seen similar, I suppose, continuation of change that's happened during COVID. And I don't think fitness industry is any different. I think it's got a huge opportunity, and let's strike while the iron is hot.
I totally agree with you, Grace. I think it's a super exciting time for the fitness industry moving forward. Ian, what do you think? Is there anything else that you could add to Grace's points here?
Well, I think, Rob, you also did a very good job there of putting out a great set of points, which in some ways encapsulates it. I think the additional ones for me would probably be that there is a change in the consumer as well to some degree. I think there is an increased understanding that a few trips to the gym each week is not going to constitute wellness, and wellness as a term is probably more in the consumer domain than the industry domain now than it's ever been. I think we've had a public which has been soaked in information regarding the subject for the last 12 months as the pandemic has raged on. And that's meant that the consumer is looking at the other areas which will help them in this area, such as nutrition, hydration, mindfulness, and those type of areas. They are big parts of the overall consumer journey. And I think with the digital offerings, the consumer has more experience of digital offerings now. They've been forced to actually go through that learning curve. There's a higher level of comfort. I look at wearable technology, 67 million of them shipped in 2020. That's got to be one of the primary reasons why it was purchased, would be for health and fitness. That's obviously got to be an area which we as an industry need to look at. How can we engage with those people who've made those choices? I think another area which I think the data's not in on yet is discretionary spend. If we have a personal budget relative to our wellness or to our fitness, I think we're probably going to find that that's got more people not only fighting for it from an external perspective, but internally as a consumer, we've probably got views around how we would like to do that. We've probably maybe implemented now a mindfulness digital product, as well as our gym membership, as well as maybe some external digital classes. And then I guess two final points would be, work from home is definitely going to influence gym choices going forward. We're seeing that in the numbers already, and there is most definitely going to be a shift to some degree where we're going to see the opening of more gyms in the suburban areas because they will have the residential support due to work from home. And then the final big one for me is clearly the rise of the outdoor workout. We saw 63 million in the United States running in 2020, 52 million cycling. There's a 34% increase in outdoor running overall. These could be viewed as competitive threats to the industry. What they should be looked at is opportunities. How can we engage with the individuals? How can we engage with this changing consumer? A consumer that's more motivated than ever to achieve wellness and fitness. And how can we, as an industry which has been the temple of fitness for such a long period of time, have the opportunity to help them to meet those goals?
Fantastic. Some really great points that you both covered in that. Moving on to the next question, some of the points we've been discussing here that I think would have changed anyway, not just related to COVID, so at some point in the future it would change, such as the move away from cash, people purchasing more online, and the move away from the high street, and as you said, people staying at home and working from home, so therefore more facilities nearer where they live are required. Grace, understanding a little bit about what you do with Exi, have you seen that the pandemic has changed user behavior to lean towards remote digital programming?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's two aspects. First of all, when COVID hit, I was at Apple at the time, and pretty much overnight, every operator that hadn't a digital strategy all of a sudden had to create one. And that's been, was a positive from my perspective, because it's reached more people and it has expanded the offer. And well done to all those that had already had a strategy and then for those that reacted quickly and were able to make that offering. You know, we find that the people who want to get active is pretty much everyone. But I suppose where we see people want to get active, to Ian's point, they want to get active more likely at home, because that's where they are now more than that, more likely than not. But they still want to have support, and they still want to be connected. They still want to know, are they doing the right thing? And can somebody help motivate and help hold them accountable? And I think the idea of digital is best placed when it's complementing that, you know, professional, that engagement. We're still people, we still like face-to-face. Digital is never going to replace people. But if we use it properly, we can engage more people more effectively with more personalization and give them what they need and give it to them when they need it and where they need it, which is anytime, 24/7 at home, for the right variety. So, and this is where I think was important here, is that we don't lose sight of the challenge that the industry has faced and the challenge the industry has overcome. There's still more to do, because to Ian's point is there's still an awful lot more that can be done. And I say that is, you know, coming from the side of people with chronic conditions, there's still not a vast majority of people with chronic conditions using fitness centres, and they should be. They absolutely should be. We know that. I mean, there's no question on that. But to do so and to do it effectively, data is important, but also science is important, and the connection, accountability, motivation are important. And that's where, you know, I think it's a huge opportunity to partner with the professionals to use digital as an outreach and an engagement tool for accountability.
Fantastic. I completely agree. Ian, looking to draw some understanding from your experience with the data and AI at Keep Me and your other digital businesses, have you seen that the pandemic has changed user behavior towards their health club memberships in any way?
Rob, I'm going to disappoint you with a relatively short answer here, and that's because that data is still to come. I think we're still at a very early stage. I mean, we've had some markets which had 10 months out of the last 12 close. So, you know, we were always going to see an initial strong rebound in sales. I think that what we, I'm not going to call it anecdotal, because I have done enough meetings over the last 12 weeks or so of a broad spectrum, both geographically and by sector. And what I have seen is that the recovery is not evenly distributed, and that we are seeing stronger performance from the budget or the value segment, and that the boutiques are definitely still having a torrid time getting themselves back up to pace. Now, there's a number of reasons behind that. The business models would obviously be one of them, relative to the way they manage subscriptions or lack thereof. But there also goes back to that other point made previously regarding the provincial, suburban over metropolitan. I think that what we're seeing there currently is that, particularly for boutiques, that the boutiques that generally find themselves in the more affluent areas of our metropolitan cities are not yet seeing the foot traffic return to the same degree. And it's that type of performance which still causes some concern when it comes to how the sector itself will move forward. And the reasons why I say that is because I think the boutiques have to be given credit for being the innovation room for a lot that what goes on in our industry and gets adopted further up the change into the larger operators. So my hope is obviously that we're going to see that change, but at this stage at the moment, it's too early to say. And one thing which is being reported actively, it goes back to this discretionary spend again. And then again, you could argue that that's why we're seeing a much more of a drive through at the budget and the value segments of the market, because what we are seeing is that people who have adopted digital habits, digital fitness, or digital engagement with those type of products are still utilizing face-to-face on a supplementary basis. And because of that, we are finding that the discretionary spend is somewhat more challenged, maybe because people are logically looking to add the face-to-face, but taking into account the payments that they're having to make for the digital as well.
So interesting, and certainly something we've seen with what we do at Physical as well, with this mix of this hybrid model where people are delivering face to face but still engaging with digital. Even now the clubs are back open again, which is great. Grace, moving back to you, do you see that these new behaviours and trends help move the fitness industry forwards? And if so, what challenges do you foresee here?
Yeah, and I think actually Ian made some good points there. What we're seeing is, to the point of, like, if you look at the health and healthcare industry, they now more, I think, appreciate more the fitness industry, and have seen that the funds that they already provide towards health, and going back to the broader aspect of health, you know, they're funding weight management programs, they're funding diabetes prevention and so on, and cardiovascular and diabetes remission and whatnot. They're also now forcing us and pushing those providers of those programs to ensure that they're not only engaging with activity and recommending activity, but they have a solid and much more robust activity inclusion and criteria within those programs. And that's where we're actually seeing, so the end user, toward discretionary spend, the end user has no additional cost, but it means that the NHS is paying more, potentially paying for more people to go through more programs, which ultimately takes the pressure off of the ICU beds. So they're moving that kind of funding into more prevention. And what we're seeing is that the providers acknowledge that the science is there, the facilities are there, the fitness professionals are there, but they haven't really robustly integrated people who aren't active, that central population, into that ecosystem. And that's where we're, you know, I think we're finding a good balance where we're kind of at that middle junction between fitness professionals as well as through those healthcare and health operators, to marry those two together so that we can have evidence-based, validated medical offering, but that combines with the reality of the industry being face-to-face is still important, still vital, and still the only way to really feel like you're supported and motivated. But able to do that with the foundation of science that is, I suppose, complex. And I say that as most people have more than one condition. So it's very hard for, you know, the fitness industry to cater for the people that have multiple conditions. You walk in the door with, you know, cardiovascular disease, obesity, diabetes, you know, Parkinson's, and realistically, absolutely nobody has access to every single contraindication and every single, you know, research behind that. So that's where we think it's quite important that we can, and it's where Excellence comes in, is having the prescription is the frequency, density, and time, and then it adds an additional personalization with the professional then of what's that type, what's the activity, what's strength, was it running, Zumba classes, whatever, you know, further personalizing that personal prescription that's automated, so they can add on that, you know, finish off the kind of the loop of FIT principles, but do so in a way that they know is kind of foundationally based upon all of the contraindications and is safe, so that the person feels more, I suppose, safer, the person feels more comfortable, and then they will hopefully then listen, you know, really engage, because they have that confidence of it being, you know, based upon them, based for them, and taking into consideration their needs, which often, you know, is hard to assess and hard to plan and program for. And it's here to stay. Thankfully, I think trainers are working quite well now that they have also, again, the ability to expand their offering to more people, and also have more confidence to do so and do it well, and to prove that they're getting the health outcomes. So they can go back to the health system to say it's not just getting active and short-lived, or, you know, we're getting the same people active again. It's proving that let's move the needle on obesity, let's move the needle on diabetes, let's move the needle on cholesterol, you know, and do that with the way that we're hopefully generates more funding from the health and the NHS. And I say NHS because we're doing some good work there. But every country has the exact same challenges. Every country, you know, should and can and will fund more in people into activity once there's proof of it being successful ultimately.
It's wonderful, and so true that the NHS and other health organisations are now more open to this. There's a lot of well done to the companies like EuropeActive, etc., for continuing to plug away that mission that we've all known for too long, that if more people are more active, they're going to be less of a burden on the healthcare systems. And it sounds like, you know, everything is moving forwards now finally at some great speed, which is great. Ian, what are your thoughts here?
Well, I guess to all of Grace's points there, which are completely bang on, the primary difference I'd come at it from would be, whilst that's, shall we say, the chronic aspect of the human condition, I'm looking more at the performance aspect of it as regards to a consumer. And as I said before, I think the primary change we've seen is in the consumer is a better understanding now. I think every one of us, if we'd taken a test pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, would have a considerably different and more informed view about what constitutes better health. And the media has obviously made sure that we understood that by making sure that the news and everything else was covered on such a regular basis. But customer expectations will definitely increase. And if we're looking at the effect it's going to have on an operator needs to be able to demonstrate that they have those understandings as well. You may not be the operator that provides all of these particular services, such as mindfulness and those type of aspects of it, but you need to have an understanding of what part they will play in the overall customer's wellness journey, and then represent accordingly to make sure that you can signal to them that you not only have that understanding, but you're supportive of it. I think we still as an industry are missing in the majority the impact that wearables are having on both our consumer and the understanding that our consumers have relative. And I make those comments and sometimes they get thrown at me straight away. Well, the vast majority of them don't even know what's on their wrist. Well, you know what? Well, some of them do. And a lot of them are going to start getting better at it. And when they're not, you're going to have organizations like Apple and Whoop who are going to simplify things to the degree where people will. And what's going to be important for us as an industry is to have the capacity to help the customer integrate that understanding into their on-site visits within our overall organizations. Because in doing so, we'll be able to demonstrate the progress or lack of progress in some cases, but we'll be able to give them the measurable outcomes which are always going to be aligned with better overall outcomes than just basing it off some bland metrics such as attendance or something else along those lines. I think those, plus the necessity to understand that within the digital sphere currently, the levels of personalization are rapidly increasing. The ability for the digital tools to understand at what state I present myself in at that current time, whether it be the utilization of HR, HRV, or any other of those particular data aspects, or even ones I prepare, and then personalize, is going to be something increasingly I'm going to expect replicated when I go for an on-site experience as well. Those type of opportunities, when embraced, are not only going to see more consumers coming into us, but also staying with us. Because when we're providing the personalized level of service, when we're giving them the opportunity to track their progress, we're also giving them the reasons to stay with us, rather than leave us in a situation of just comparing a base location and the amount of equipment within the site.
I totally agree. I think it's a really exciting time now looking at data and how users are interacting with fitness wearables and seeing their wellness, and not just thinking about we're selling a membership to a group of customers that may or may not attend, and how well they're doing based on their interactions with the club. Now we can really look at a holistic approach to wellness and be supported with their at-home and in-club experience. And I think that, as you said rightly, is a sweet spot for operators, which is different from just having a pure digital approach. Now you've got real life professionals that work in our facilities that are able to support, educate, motivate, and support the customers with this new set of data that they've got now coming into them. Ian, as we move to the next question, let's stay with you, please, if that's okay. Do you feel that there will be any place in the future for a totally face-to-face offering, or will all fitness facilities and businesses need to embrace digitalization at some point and on some level? And I think I already know the answer to that, but it'd be great if you could just continue there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I'm getting some feedback on here currently, apologies. This is not an either-or situation, right? So, one is going to complicate the other, it's going to definitely complement the other. What we expect is that the positives of the digital experience will actually carry over into the face-to-face. what's another way of saying face-to-face, right? It's personal, right? What's the noun we get from that? Personalization. And, for us to truly happen, that's going to involve us being actually on site. We do live in an increasingly personalized environment, whether it be Netflix, Amazon, or Spotify. But in the same respect, we also are going to want to have the opportunity to supplement those type of environments with the ability to be able to do face-to-face. Let's take PT as an example, right? The unwritten contract between me and my PT is that I'm going to turn up on a regular basis, and he's going to do his best to work me to the stage that I am not bored and to the best of my ability. It's an unwritten contract, but it's there. But it's never understood that I turn up in various states. Sometimes I'm going to be in top-notch condition. Other times I'm just not. I'm going to have worked hard. And without access to any of my data, it's very difficult for a PT to be able to tune those sessions. Now, if they had access, understanding that when they've seen that, they have the capacity to personalize those sessions. They can see I'm having a harder time than normal. They can see I've had a later night. They can see I've been working hard, or maybe I haven't, right? But they've got the capacity there and then to be able to personalize that overall experience. And that moves you from being a PT to being a coach. And I think that's a very significant difference from that perspective. That's a new scenario that changes everything.
I think you're right. And having been a personal trainer for 20 years, I certainly agree with everything you've just said there in terms of that client-trainer relationship being, you've got to deal with what you've got on the day. And my view was always, someone said, I want to buy 10 sessions. It was never about the 10 sessions, because you can make a minimal change in that period. It was about the long-term relationship and changing how you can coach and support them through all the different phases within their life. Grace, understanding you made the move away from a face-to-face health and wellbeing offering at Apple to provide a digitalized solution specifically for rehabilitation and specialist programming at Exi. Do you think that all fitness businesses will embrace digitalization at some point?
Yeah, I think digital already exists across every business, to be honest with this. There's already some level of digitalization and technology, whether it's externally facing for members or whether it's internally facing, it exists. And I think there's an element of, if we get the right balance, we support people to do more and do less. I think we might swing in the wrong direction, or maybe potentially have swung in the wrong direction for some, where it's too digital. But we do need to find that balance, that the idea of technology is to support individuals to do their best work, right? And support individuals to offer what they can, and to also support each other. And I think what's important here is we need to find that balance, and we need to be sure that technology is not a barrier. It shouldn't be complicated. It shouldn't be adding to processes and time and resources. It should be reducing down the time of administration and increasing actually the opportunity to talk to people. Look, I think Ian hit the nail on the head there as well around personal. Face-to-face is personal. It's personalization. You can only do that. You can only do that in face-to-face. You can only be personal with somebody in person. Technology is there to help that. The data support that conversation. I think a very simple opportunity here is, you get data on people's glucose, for example, and I say that because we look at 40% of people, unfortunately, who passed away from COVID had diabetes. That's right. That's a crazy number. But if the fitness industry doesn't know what the glucose numbers or the diabetics, what their numbers are, it's harder to support them. So that data is to support people to be supported and to support a conversation that's productive and effective. And exactly as Ian said, I show up today absolutely wrecked, then my training needs to change. Whereas tomorrow I might be absolutely different. So having that data ahead of time helps make it easier to engage with a person and to really find them where they're at that day and support them that day. And I think the data is essential. It's absolutely essential. And without it, I think without it, we end up losing context, and we also end up losing the ability to engage at a deep level with each individual. So it's here to stay. And I think we just make sure that everyone's finding the right balance. And actually, just one point that Ian mentioned around wearables. The vast majority of people in gyms have a wearable. There's no doubt about it, whether it's around the chest, on their arm, or on the wrist. They have a wearable, they have data. And I think you're missing the trick if you don't have access to understanding that as well, and that data, and using it in a way that supports you as the operator, but also them as the member. Because once you start engaging, that's a continuous ongoing engagement, then it's seamless data sharing that can be used effectively. And if you're not doing that, there's opportunities there, I think, to improve that, which improve personalizations, which improves engagement. And going back to just the business aspect, improves the long-term sustainability of members as members, and potentially with more services being utilized because they have the ability to engage and use that data and to know what the personalization of the services that they want and need, and that can be offered. So it's an opportunity, again, opportunity that we should be and can be leveraging an awful lot better than we are today.
Totally agree. And I, for a long time, always thought that the trainers are the frontline sales force of any operation. So if they're not engaging and the trainers are not supporting members in a way where they can capture more information and help adapt their coaching programs and deliver service, then it's just a member waiting that's joined, uses the facility, and then potentially leave in the future. So completely agree that this is a positive change that is moving in the right direction. And I think hope more operators will progress this digitalization journey further. We're going to look at our next question, which is to discuss which is whether or not we feel the fitness industry is progressive in this field of digitalization, or do we feel that they're lagging behind other sectors? I remember walking into a meeting in Australia in 2011 when we first started talking to health clubs about what we do with physical to digital solutions. We met with some of the captains of industry down there and showed them what we did. I remember we showed them why we believed it was important to give members access to an in-app and online booking and programming solution within a club branded experience, so that members could continue to engage with the club and its offering wherever they were, in the club, outside the club, etc. I remember exactly the response we met that we were completely mad. The exact quote was, "No one will ever book an online class. Why would they ever need to do that?" And then they went on to explain that the industry was all about the club, the community within it, the facilities, and how and this sold memberships, etc. And we've come a long way in 10 years, but I think that period has accelerated because of COVID potentially as well. We're much closer to where we should be because of the unfortunate COVID interaction. Understanding that both of you run digital platforms, I'm sure you've both met with some friction over the years. Ian, starting with you, do you think that the fitness industry has embraced digitalization over the years? And if you think that it is still lagging behind other sectors?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's cutting edge, he said with a smile on his face and a little bit of sarcasm in there. Listen, I think many operators would agree as well. For a consumer-led sector, we've been very slow to adopt consumer-led tech, such as mobile. I think even now, many operators give little thought to the importance that the supercomputer that every single one of us carries around every day in our pocket and gives more attention to anything else. The sector doesn't seem to drive tech adoption or innovation. It tends to rely on consumer-led trends or indeed external providers or external threats, which seem to drive it. And this for me, unusually extends into internal processes as well, where we've seen other sectors make considerable progress in the utilization of automation, whether it be across sales or the marketing, or whether it be the introduction of AI. I can still struggle, despite evidence to the contrary, to have people to understand. There still seems to be an inertia, a level of dogma that would suggest that as a sector, we're just not capable of doing that. And that's just not correct. And, without wanting to place it on a geographical pedestal, it's certainly not distributed evenly across the geographies either. There are some markets definitely more so than others. There's a definite reason for this. I think existing tech stacks within operators tend to be dated in some cases. When there hasn't been as much competition within the sector in particular areas, that's meant that these tools haven't evolved at the pace that maybe they would have had to do in other sectors. And in a modern technical environment, the most important aspect is to be able to have your data flowing from one application to the other, so that you've got the capacity to be able to take advantage of all of the tools that are coming through. And the idea of APIs, even now in some of the very significant products which have large installed bases, is still viewed as an added extra on the list for the future. That will cripple innovation in the sector if that continues. I do think the pandemic has refocused. We're certainly seeing it through business performance. There seems to be, they're looking to technology to give a better transparency of business performance. There seems to be a desire to do less with more, if that makes sense, and also to provide increased resilience should the staffing model or should something like this happen again. I think to achieve that, we're going to need to definitely embrace digital. That's going to be the willingness that needs to be there. People remain the most important asset in this industry. And that's such a throwaway line, I know. But the reality is that with the advent of the digital provider, the differentiator is going to be the people that work with us. Now, but it's going to be their willingness to develop and drive the business forward with digital that's going to separate the winners from the losers. I see it every day. I still see household names who have an inability to do so. And my personal expectation is they'll cease in 5 years. I also see others, by the way, that build with digital in mind. And I've got significantly more confidence that they're going to be around in a marketplace that's going to become increasingly competitive, but also increasingly larger.
Totally agree with you on that. And obviously we see that as you do on a day-to-day basis with operators and their tech stacks and not being able to deliver or integrate easily and efficiently. Grace, what are your thoughts here? Do you think that the fitness industry is lagging behind other industries, and are they embracing the move to digitalization well now?
Yeah, I would agree with everything Ian said. Yes, I think they're lagging behind, and I say that even before I moved over to Exie from the Apple side. Even talking about wearables are not new for sure. Data is not new. The health app and data from Google Fit and everything, it's not new, but it would have been met with a lot of resistance. So yeah, there's definitely a lag for sure. And I think there's been a forced update, I suppose, and a forced engagement with this for some in the last 18 months. But I'm going to think positively, though. I'm an optimist that those who've engaged with it see the value, see that it has helped their business recover. It has helped sustain some membership, at least throughout the pandemic. And I think it's here to stay. So I think they're lagging. I think they're helping to catch up. But I agreed, typically not a consumer leading industry for technology, but hopefully I think is what hopefully get better because the technology has gotten better and easier to use and more affordable, more accessible and more integrated. That's the one thing, though, I think we still have more work to do to integrate and make these systems work together, because what a technology, I suppose, what a operator needs, or one needs and what another needs could be different, but all of these systems should work together. The joys of activity, health, wellness, and so on it's a win-win-win. Everyone kind of wins once the majority of people are actually, I think, working together. So I think it is a win-win-win. We need to get better at integration, better at partnership. And I say true partnership, true integration, so that the seamless access of different technologies for the individual to personalize their journey, their experience within the fitness industry is important, and it is lagging. And I think that's where there's a huge focus. And I'd ask the industry, I suppose, to have their strategic conversations and have a sit back and talk to the technology. Thankfully, nearly every one of us is open to a conversation with no commitment. And I think it's just looking at have those conversations. You don't know what you don't know. We don't know what you want us to do, I suppose, sometimes, and we also don't know what systems and what you're thinking of you want to do. So everything's possible if we know the brief. So have the conversations, ask as many questions as possible, get us all in the one room, even just to brainstorm around ideas and issues and challenges and problems that we can solve for. But yeah, there's a huge amount of work, to be honest. And I think the digital industry and the technology space is willing. So, embrace it, use it as to the advantage that can be done for.
Sounds like there's a good opportunity to have an open forum there with operators and tech companies meeting, as you suggest, where we can all discuss these issues together. As we draw to the end of the session today, I'm conscious that we've only got a few minutes left. The time has raced through today. I've got one remaining question left. Do you feel the fitness industry is being shown by the tech giants, the interest in the health and fitness industry shown by the big tech giants of Silicon Valley will help or hinder the growth and sustainability of the bricks and mortar fitness facilities? I personally believe that the hybrid model is going to be something that clubs will embrace in order to stay relevant. If they don't have it, there will be a challenge there, I foresee there. However, the likes of Apple Fitness and Peloton, to name a few, have come down to their own into their own during the pandemic. I was listening yesterday to a Tony Robbins podcast with the CEO of Peloton, and he was saying that they are only at 2% of where they want to be in terms of their monthly subscriptions. They have 2 million users. They're looking to gain 100 million users. And he specifically said on the podcast that they are going to target the users of health and fitness clubs. It's not just everybody else. He's saying these are the easiest people that we can take. Ian, do you feel that the Silicon Valley tech giants will move into the fitness space or help or hinder us, or have a detrimental effect on the bricks and mortars?
I can't wait to hear Grace's answer on this one, actually, having come from one of those giants. Listen, I'm absolutely convinced that this will prove to be one of the greatest growth agents for bricks and mortar facilities. I think that we won't have seen a period like this for maybe the last decade, even longer. I'll explain why in a minute. I don't, as I've said before, by the way, think the distribution of growth is going to be even. I think that the budget and value operators will be the main beneficiary of this. But I think we need to have an honest discussion about what prospects were for the industry as a whole before COVID. If the penetration was plateaued and the size of the available market, in my opinion, was actually shrinking. And that's contrary to what's being said in many cases today. But let me explain why. Europe has got a population which is rapidly aging. It's more than 20% of the population is now over 60. And a walk down the high street does not show you too many facilities that are looking specifically to either support or cater that increasingly aging marketplace. So where's the optimism? Well, the optimism is that, with the likes of Google, with the likes of Apple, with the likes of Peloton, you've got some of the greatest consumer marketing minds who already have some of the largest customer bases on the planet looking to engage people in our industry. They're going to engage people that we couldn't and never have had the opportunity to engage before. And in doing so, they're going to introduce to us, I believe, new cohorts that are in turn going to come to us looking for their tribe, looking for more variation, and also looking for their one-to-one instruction. So that the entire digital discussion relative to its impact on bricks and mortar, I'm firmly on the side of positive for those operators that can take advantage and realign themselves with the new digital savvy consumer that they're going to have coming in through their doors.
Fantastic. Conscious of time, thank you for that, Ian. Grace, before we run out of time on today, I'm really keen to hear what your thoughts are, and then we'll wrap up the session. So thank you. Over to you, Grace.
I'll keep it quick and make sure I'm also conscious of what I can talk about. Look, Apple created a whole program to work with the fitness industry, Apple Watch Connected. It's designed around engaging more people in technology and digital in the fitness operator. So the whole program is there. Apple wants people to be active, obviously use an Apple Watch, basics, but the whole program exists in order to increase and support and improve the experience within the bricks and mortar fitness industry. So I think it's a compliment. I think it will help drive people to fitness industry and fitness providers. And that's what they're trying to do. And if you haven't already engaged in the Apple Watch Connected, I'd say start Googling and start engaging. There's a whole team there dedicated to supporting the use and the data and the experience for fitness operators. They're best in class at consumer experience. So opportunity going to miss if you haven't already engaged with it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Grace. And I'm sorry we ended a little shorter than I'd hoped there. As we wrap up today's session, I just want to say a huge thank you to Grace and Ian for joining me on this discussion. I hope that everybody has listened to this, has found it useful. And if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to get in touch with us directly. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the next session, Inclusion Strategies Across the Fitness Sector. I'm very proud to be hosting this session. I'm Rachel Young. I'm the Director of Business Development for MyZone across EMEA, and I'm also the Vice Chair for EuropeActive's advisory group on inclusion. And under that inclusion umbrella comes diversity and equality. We've just set it up as inclusion to cover all elements of it. The group was set up probably in October 2020 to fall in line and fall underneath the community pillar of the Horizons 2025 manifesto. But I'm sure you'll see from the events that EuropeActive are hosting, it's concurrent across all the pillars, and it's an integral part of the future. So right now, I am here to host this session and moderate it for the next 45 minutes. We're going to have 30 minutes of discussion with this fantastic panel, and then 15 minutes of Q&A from you. And I ask of you one thing, and it's the same thing I asked of all the panelists, is don't hold back. This is a really important topic that we can't pay lip service to, and we have a unique opportunity. As you will have heard from every single person that's spoken before, it's about people. It's about getting into different markets and different segmentations. You know, Ian Mullane's just said, people are our biggest asset. So we really have to embrace that. So please don't hold back. Open up your minds. Let's crack off with a bit of an introduction to my fantastic panel. So I'm going to ask them all just individually who they are, what brand they represent, where they're from, and why it is really important for them right now to put inclusion on the agenda. So Denise, can I start with you?
Yes, hello. My name's Denise. I'm here representing Les Mills. I'm a trainer, assessor and presenter for the brand, and also a member of their global DEI team. So what's really important for me is going back to exactly what we just heard on the previous session. It's about people. It's about everybody feeling like they have a place, a space in society. And I'm really passionate about just making sure that people feel welcome wherever they go.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Isabel, tell us a little bit about you too.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me here. I'm Isabel and 45 years old. I'm Director, Central Operation of the LifeFit Group Germany. The LifeFit Group Germany is an operator with 7 successful fitness brands from boutique, high value, low price and premium segments. And the largest brand of the LifeFit Group is Fitness First, where I started in 2000. And I want to be a part of this discussion because inclusion is such an important topic. It helps us improve us as a company. Teams with different characters and people from different backgrounds are able to be more innovative and solution-oriented. And I think it helps us fulfill our company's mission. So Fitness First mission is to motivate people. But I also think we are still at the beginning of the journey here. And so I look forward to sharing how we can continue and grow and improve the program.
Sure, perfect. Tim?
Yeah, hello. Thank you so much, Rachel. Tim Mathias, I work at EuropeActive, so with a trade body with a UK remit. We've recently buddied up and collaborating fantastically with EuropeActive, our counterparts in Europe. And I lead on inclusion with a UK remit. So in answer to the question, why now? Over the course of the pandemic, just the health inequalities of real light has been shined on them, and the inequalities based on certain sections of the community, the health inequalities are deepening and widening. So we feel fitness and leisure has a huge role to play. So naturally, inclusion fits into that. And look, as the sector recovers, what a great way to reach out to new audiences, engage with new members, and broaden our horizons as an industry. It's going to be great in a commercial sense. It's going to be great, in terms of, battling the health inequalities and doing our bit. We truly believe in the UK that inclusion fits in as a business function because we feel fitness and leisure is an essential service. It's so key to mental health. We know that so more now coming out the back of the pandemic.
Sally, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sally Maron. I'm 50 years old. I work currently at Basic Fit as an international training specialist for Basic Fit. I've been working in the fitness industry for now 21 years, and I work for Basic Fit, and I work for and with Basic Fit to help our staff members get better in terms of service, also in terms of management in our clubs. So I work for and with Basic Fit staff members and of all levels in the organization. Members, I'm also a member of the Women in Fitness Association and member of the DEI committee. And first of all, thank you very much, Rachel, for this invitation to join this panel around a subject that touches me as an individual, also as a fitness professional, and especially as an employee of Basic Fit, the largest fitness operator in Europe. I'm very happy because this session marks an awareness of all of us, awareness that we need to stop and check on how we are doing our business when it comes to the human, because this topic is simply all about humans. And for that, I hope that this panel and this discussion around inclusion will bring us new insights and ideas that I could share with my colleagues at Basic Fit.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think anyone listening, if you look at the makeup of the panel here, we've got trade associations, we've got educational and training providers, and we've got operators. This is not one person's challenge or mission to solve. It's all of us to work together as a collective. Over the last couple of weeks, I've had the pleasure of speaking to each of these guys in depth, and you're going to hear today the value of leadership and the leadership responsibilities, the importance of standards which tie into the Horizons 2025 manifesto. You're going to understand from Basic Fit how they've adopted and how they've started across 5 different countries. As Martin said earlier, it's different market segmentation through the Live Fit brands is how to address this or how to communicate with different people. And the punchline all goes down to people, what we do, and this is the line in the sand about where we start, where we go, and how we do this even better. So why is it a non-negotiable? Tell me a little bit about, and let's share with the audience, why has this become the non-negotiable for your brands or the sector that the area that you're representing? Why right now? And why have you guys been brave enough and ballsy enough to stand up and go, actually, I'm going to make some commitments and I'm going to take some steps. So why now is my question.
I'm happy to take this one on, Rachel. And the short answer is why not? Why not now? Which doesn't really help in the context of a webinar, I know, but who doesn't want? Why not? More members? Why not healthier nations? Why not increase our membership base? Why not do the right thing? And I think that's the most compelling argument for inclusion. Above and beyond the commercial case, and naturally, if we reach out to more members and more people coming and accessing the sector, there's the commercial element. But deep down, really, this is the right thing to do. Increasingly, as we talk now on the trends in terms of marketing and values, Generation Z, that younger age group, really value just an approach to looking after each other, a sense of belonging, doing the right thing is the most compelling reason for me. And that's now becoming a business function for us. And that's what we're encouraging within the UK and supporting our industry over in the UK. Do the right thing because it's good for your operation. It's good for business. That's the most compelling argument for me. So sorry to say why not, but this is the ultimate commitment you've got to make, because there are just so many compelling arguments to opt into this.
I think to pick up on one of those points, Tim, that you've just made, it's always the right time to do the right thing. And from my experience of over 30 years in the fitness industry, I'm a bit of a dinosaur. I think the perception, I love the industry, and don't get me wrong, we think we're kind of the snuggly wuggly and most welcoming of sectors, but actually the pandemic and the kind of events over the last 18 months have made us take a long, hard look in the mirror, and we have the chance to speak up, to speak openly, to speak out, and to do the right thing. So valid point, Tim. Sally, over to you.
Yes, Tim, you're right. Why not now? If I can speak for the sector, I would say that the growing demand for physical activity has made us realize that we do not have all the conditions to welcome and encourage everyone to be more active, because our goal is to make everyone more active. And even prior to the pandemic, there were a lot of inactive people in the world, in Europe, and don't need to say that it got even worse during the pandemic. Therefore, there is an awareness that we need to readapt the entire sector. And to do so, we needed to ask ourselves one major question. Can everyone, or as a member or as an employee, join the fitness sector and feel good, feel welcomed, and feel valued? And I think the answer to that question actually currently is no. And that's why we stand up now and are preparing to take action to make everybody feel good, feel welcomed and valued in the fitness sector. And as I can speak for Basic Fit, I can say that we are inclusive by our geographical coverage. But if you look at our staff members and club members, you will see that they are coming from all horizons. And still, we know that there is much work to do. Our value says be accessible, smart, inclusive, and committed. And there, what we want actually is not to stay by words. These are not only words. And as Stefan Ludwig this morning said at the beginning of the session, we at Basic Fit do keep our expansion plans, means we will keep on enlarging our community. And when it comes to enlarging your community, you have to change things. You have to do things better. And we realized that we must ensure that our members and our potential clients recognize themselves in us, means from the floor to the board. And instead of talking about the elephant in the room, our CEO wanted us to take part of this discussion around DEI in general. It is therefore from a moral and a human point of view and a moral perspective that we want to make sure that everyone will feel welcome and will feel valued within the sector and within Basic Fit as a member or as a staff member.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sally. Some really valid points there. And forgive me for writing some notes for some later questions. I think it's very interesting what you said. It's come from leadership. It's come from your CEO. You know, you're trying to implement this across kind of 5 different territories. And this comes from a top-down and also a bottom-up approach. We don't have all the answers, but I think collectively we can work on solutions. So leadership is critical, and you have to lead by example. Leadership's not just a title, you know, it's an action. So Isabel, we had some great conversations. Tell me why it's a non-negotiable across, you know, the different brands that you are all managing.
So I think for all the different brands, we need to find the right character. Regardless of gender, age, sexual orientation or whatever, to find the best employee. And then it's important for us to develop each employee so that they can bring their strengths to the team. So for our example, to train and empower every employee, we have our own learning and development platform. So we call it Be the Best You Can Be. And also the values, it's also essential to define the right values to have a basis for further inclusion programs. Maybe we come back later to this discussion on the values, but see, when I see it from the member side, 13 or 14% of the population in Germany are members of gym. But we want to become a country where we have more than 20%, like Sweden. This means we need to include all people, regardless of their background, gender, health status. And the pandemic has even shown that the better your immune system, the better you can deal with sickness, which is for us means that we have even systematical relevant to our society. And when we help people improve their physical and mental health, regardless of age, gender, background, we contribute a better life for each of them and even our society.
No, it's really some really valid points there. And I think we just almost as a sector have to lighten up a bit. Perhaps the journey so far, maybe there's a massive amount of ignorance, and it's not our fault. Sometimes we don't know how to take actions or how to make things better. So what's interesting, I'd quite like to hear from you, Denise, is why is this a non-negotiable at Les Mills now? You know, you're targeting almost a different audience from my side. It's kind of trainers, coaches, and the front line. You know, the people that you're, you know, through your on-demand program. So why have you taken the opportunity to drive inclusivity and inclusion? And you've made some fantastic commitments and statements that you shared with me. Perhaps you could just explain why now.
So obviously, as everyone else has said, the pandemic has made a big difference. The incident, shall we call it, in the US with George Floyd also had a massive difference on how we came up with our commitments to change. So yes, the commercial part is obviously there. We did have an online platform before the pandemic started, and that showed us that we really needed to up our game with that. So the clubs are closed. We have a lot of customers all around the world. So yes, inclusivity about getting people able to access Les Mills, maybe when they are nowhere near a gym, where some of the places we operate, like in the US, people don't have a gym within 2, 3, 4 hours of where they might live. So that's a huge thing about inclusivity. Another great thing about Les Mills and what they're taking on board right now is about diversity. So they are recognizing that out of their consumer base, that maybe they are not including every kind of community. So one, that obviously has a commercial adverse effect, because these are businesses, these are people that we might not be engaging with, but they also want to be known to be doing the right thing, to be standing up for their community, to make sure that everybody is included, not just around health, but around wealth, around race, around sexuality, just literally everything. So the commitments that we've come up with as a company, they cover broadly pretty much every kind of thing that Les Mills is talking about. So inclusion is a great title, I think, because it just means that the whole planet is included in this. But as I say, we do have specific commitments around certain things that the company wants to build on.
Yeah, and I think when we've discussed it and looking at those commitments, they're great commitments. They're commitments that align to your brand and the vision that you described. But you've kind of put your money where your mouth is as a brand, and you've set it up, which is a fantastic thing to do, because the way to drive this is through authenticity, transparency, honesty. I mean, they may seem like you kind of cliche words, but we have to be honest with each other. We have to be authentic, and we have to talk to each other and work collaboratively so that we can help progress the sector, because we've got a responsibility to make it better. We've got a responsibility. Those numbers, 13%, 19%, 15% in different territories, it's not good enough. We have a responsibility to be way better and way better as leaders. So just kind of moving on, I think there's people probably listening and thinking, is Rachel always this excited? Probably thinking, this is good, but where do I start? So if you could, perhaps before we go through where do we start, maybe we look at some of the challenges you face, because, from Basic Fit, from Fitness First and Les Mills and Tim, how do you get the buy-in? So what are the challenges that you have faced since we start with you, Sally? CEO has spoken to you, say, look, we have to do something about this. We're going to take some action. What kind of challenges have you faced?
Well, at Basic Fit, our mission statement is to make fitness accessible to everybody and a habit people love. That's what we say. And when we say everybody, we also mean everybody. It means people of different sizes, different genders, different races, ages, different abilities, and different identities. So it's about making people feel good, feel welcome, and feel valued. And I think the challenge you will be facing as a sector is to be able to combine concrete and satisfactory actions with your mission. And that's the case for Basic Fit too. For instance, to create a sustainable environment, to create for disabled people, adapted workplaces. Maybe I can use an example in France, what we did last. We created a workplace for disabled people. Just to give that example, since this year, we have been working on a project to integrate disabled people at Basic Fit. For this, we are working with a company with which we organize job datings, which has enabled us to have recently recruited a few visually impaired persons, one in particular, for whom we had to adapt the workplace and provide him, for instance, a bigger screen and a braille keyboard. So the challenges are here. But the thing is, if you keep on asking yourself, should I do something or where should I start? You will never start. I would say, just go for it. This project in France started in one city, but we are in the process of extending it nationwide. We don't know if it will be a success everywhere, but we will try it. We want to create a reflex, a reflex which is to look for staff members elsewhere than via the traditional network. And to encourage everyone, we have to make also this clear to everyone. We are ready to make the next step about inclusion. We are ready to include everyone who will want to join Basic Fit as a member or as a staff member. So there are enough challenges, Rachel. The thing is, you just have to go for it and start doing things.
Yeah, I think you've just made some really valid points there in terms of, a great philosopher once said to me, the hardest part is simply just getting started. You have to take action. There's lots of, the silence across the sector is sometimes deafening. And sadly, the silence is not out of they don't want to get started, but you just don't know how to start. And a real palpable fear of making a mistake and getting it wrong. I think we all have to draw this line in the sand and say, look, the past doesn't equal the future. Let's create this future and move forwards. Let's make these mistakes. And I think, Isabel, something that I wrote down when we spoke, that you celebrate mistakes. I want to come and work with you because I make loads of them. Celebrate mistakes. So perhaps, going back to the original question, what challenges have you faced with inclusion?
The challenge is, first and foremost, leaders in the company must live what they tell their employees. They are role models, and if they don't act as they preach, it's very difficult to introduce a culture of inclusion. And you told it, in our company, our CEO, Martin, started the session before, has instituted Celebrate Mistakes. And it's really working well because employees are more engaged and motivated. They are more innovative and try to work on new things and develop them further because they know, even if I make a mistake, it's okay, as long as I do my best. And that's really, really, we live it over all employees, from the management to the cleaning personnel. And also, we don't forget to communicate what we do, and we often even overdo. So it's remembers and never forgotten. So also the values. And what we do very well is we recognize employees every week who act according to our values, guidelines, and processes. We send a newsletter to all employees where we recognize these employees, which do it very well in her daily business.
Perfect, thank you. I think, Denise, you wanted to jump in there.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how you were talking about getting started. if you don't know about Les Mills, we work on a 3-month cycle of new music, new choreography, new marketing. So what we found was our customer-facing side, we could actually make some really big changes very quickly. So one of our commitments is around diversity with race, ethnicity, also with disabilities. So that sort of thing we could change quite quickly. And because that is customer facing, it shows our commitment. So we fully expect to be called out when we get it wrong. And again, like Isabel said, we don't mind that. We expect to make mistakes, and that's how you learn. But when it is customer facing and we have been able to make the changes quickly, it does show our intention. I suppose the flip side of that is our business side, where we haven't made as many changes internally because the employee movement is not as frequent in a business side. So we are still working on that side, but we've got a kind of a balance. So when people look at Les Mills now, and when they look at Les Mills a year ago, they will see huge changes, and they have been able to implement quickly. So if you are involved in marketing, for example, you can set your stall out as to what your commitments are very quickly, very easily.
Some brilliant advice there. And I think the marketing and looking within before you put it out to kind of your communities is a really important thing to do. And then Tim, this is what you do, Tim. You're head of inclusion for EuropeActive, which I think is fantastic. You know, we speak quite often, and I know it's quite a challenging role, but just to show the respect, the importance of such a role, you have that title. So what challenges do you face? We're talking kind of sector and operator challenges. What challenges have you faced sort of internally and getting getting buy-in for want of a better phrase? Because I do think that all the advice that you're offering and comments and experiences, people can take and put into their business or their operations. So.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I'll try and do this in 2 parts because I'm very, very fortunate EuropeActive have invested sort of in this role, real commitment to inclusion across the sector. And look, I've come out of professional sport, professional rugby, where they were 13, 14 rugby clubs. They all had the same stadia. They all had broadly a ticket office, an academy and a training ground. Whereas now we're in a sector, UK alone, 7,200 gyms, fitness facilities, swimming pools, etc. So wow, it's the scale. And having a full-time role in post, I'm in a bit of a bubble because I use the jargon. And this is one of the barriers: inclusion, equality, equity, diversity, intersectionality. So I see my role as very much as a translator for those who aren't particularly au fait or familiar with how to get to grips and make that first move. I think it was one element that Sally mentioned. You start with the workforce internally. Or do you look at your membership or your operation and customer facing? That's one of the first things to kind of consider. The second is just to start somewhere. And our commitment at EuropeActive over the course of the pandemic has been gathering more information, more data, more insight. It's taken the form of some consumer polling to women and girls just coming out of the pandemic. How do they feel? How are their confidence levels? We've just launched a consultation of operators on the perceptions and the elements of their provision for disabled people. We've done a similar thing for age and 55 plus. So for us to gain traction across 7,200 facilities up and down the country, one is me being a translator and talking in plain English and demystifying, decoding inclusion and diversity. 2 is making a really good, compelling case with the data and the insight. What are women and girls telling us they need from their fitness provision? What are the times that they like to work out? What's the marketing that really, really relates to them? And that's fulfilling our function at EuropeActive to really support our membership. So yeah, I'm a bit of a translator, bit of an insight and data obsessive as well. But I would say the biggest challenge is really demystifying some of the language we use and make this relatable and why this is a good thing. so it can be practical.
I totally agree with you, Tim. A really, really valid, sorry to jump in on that, it's a really valid point. I think that my experiences of being part of the inclusion advisory group is there is a lot of jargon out there. And from an operator's perspective and anyone in the sector, it's not rocket science. This really isn't rocket science. It's about people, doing the best by people and treating them as you would want to be expected, as you would want to be treated. So I think what I've also realized, and there's a real appetite for change, and it's something that we absolutely need to do. But we just can't continue to operate and have conversations as we've done before. So the audience, people out there listening, please feel free to jump in and ask any questions. I will put them to the panel. But I'd quite like to just speak to you all, because it's really interesting to know, we're talking about strategies, right? What's the plan? You say strategy and there's like a 5-year plan. I think from speaking to us all, we're just getting started. Yeah, we're creating this roadmap. But Sally, we had a really interesting conversation about the different territories that you're in. And I'd really like you to explain to everyone, or just share a little bit about how it's come from the top and how you've got these working groups across all the different territories, because that's a challenge. You know, different territories could be just different locations across the UK. It's a bit of a magic pill to share. So please, could you share that with us?
Well, at Basic Fit, we have one strategy. One main strategy is to open clubs in every kind of places in Europe, from the heart of Paris to the suburbs, to the underprivileged districts in Paris or in the Netherlands, where we can give access to people with different backgrounds. That is something very important for us. That is the main strategy to start with. And because this topic of inclusion is getting more and more important, we do need to make sure that we are still accessible to everyone and that we are not excluding anyone. So that's why we started this brainstorm group on inclusion. And I can say that we advocate at Basic Fit, we advocate diversity since the beginning of our journey on the fitness market, because it's in our DNA. But it's not, just a matter of having a very nice mission statement with words. It's a question of combining your mission with actions. And we will make mistakes, as anyone. We will make mistakes. We'll continue making mistakes. And as Isabella said, maybe we'll also start celebrating mistakes. I think it's a good thing to be able to make mistakes, to learn more about that, and to get forwards. So we are at Basic Fit convinced that when we give the stage to our staff members, to our members in the clubs, then we will be able to enlarge our community on a very safe, human way. And that is a very important point of view for Basic Fit, is to be the fitness chain, to be the fitness provider, which also do not forget where he comes from, because Basic Fit is a quite young company. And as I said at the very beginning, diversity is really, part of our DNA. It's not something we just, came up last year or the year before. So we're working hard on it. We've just started. It's not something we're doing for years, but we just started, and we have the awareness that if we want to enlarge our community, we will have to take in account what people want, what people feel, how people do feel with the sector, within Basic Fit, and what they expect from us. So
I think your thoughts and your approach to people and across those territories, and looking within first. So you're looking within your working groups and kind of your brainstorming groups, something that almost resonates and translates. So what we've talked about, Isabel, from your brand's perspective, is the culture. So if you could we've got about 6 minutes left. I've got 2 questions that I want to ask of each of you. But if you could just tell us a little bit about, stripping it right back, what's in the culture and the DNA of all of these brands that you'll build upon?
Yeah, our DNA is we motivate people, and we would like to motivate every people. And I think it's essential to define the right values to have a basis for the inclusion programs. And we have 5 values at Fitness First, and also we live it in the other brands. So we have passion. We do what we do with body and soul. It's dynamic and flexible. We are fast, adaptable, find solutions. Ambitious. We enjoy getting the best of every person. So it seems like every person, employees, also members. We are empathic. We see the person as a whole, listen and have understanding. And last but not least is team-oriented. So we know that together we can do anything. And in addition, they must become the DNA of the company culture that is lived by all employees.
That's it. I think what's come from two different big chain operators is the same thing. Is you've got to ask your people, you've got to look after your people, ask your people, use the people, live and breathe your values. From a global brand perspective, from Les Mills.
Yeah. So
the
basic mission statement for Les Mills is for a fitter planet, and that's what we're doing. We'll branch out into different areas. We will talk to our dedicated customer base, but also knowing that we need to grow the customer base. We need to hit those communities, those people that maybe have not experienced our product. Maybe they're not feeling comfortable with the way we were operating before. Maybe they didn't have the economic ability to partake in our programs. And that's something that's really important that I think has come out of the pandemic as well. It's about making things accessible financially as well, without undercutting and devaluing your own product. So yes, there's lots and lots of things going on with Les Mills.
It's kind of consistency of messaging and living to those 7 commitments, which I would have thought was critical. Tim, we talked about standards and some of the plans for the future. I'm not sure if I was meant to talk about these, but I'm going to. And really intrigued about your comment on leadership and getting leaders to basically walk their talk. We're going to demystify it, take away the jargon. How do you get that leadership buy-in? Because to be honest with you, we all know we need to do it, but I think the challenge is it can fall into the too hard bucket. And what commercial value is it going to bring to us? Is it going to cost me?
Yeah, so I'm fortunate that I spent part of the pandemic sort of from my kitchen table talking to chief executives and directors across the sector, really to see where senior leaders are at, what their motivations, their perceptions, their incentives to activate on inclusion. Because we feel in the UK, we've done the compliance element, the legislation, the building regulations, all of that. The next step up for us is, do we have a particular program for a specific group? And most operators do, and they've done the research. At EuropeActive, we have a program for each protected group. The next step up is, where do the leaders sit? What is the role that they can play? And I think one thing that I'll say is that in the UK, across the board, literally and figuratively, is that the leaders recognise the role of inclusion, that it was a good thing to do. But they were unsure about the exact role that they play within their operations. And it's absolutely fine on occasions to delegate down. It's to set up a working group. It's to solicit opinion. It's to ask the question. That the leaders do not need to be heroes and have an answer to everything. But to show you care, be authentic is just a fantastic place to start. Because there will be employees within your organisation, perhaps your members also, you'll be able to talk to, and a reverse mentoring where you're asking someone from a particular group or a particular background for their feedback is really going to help that process also. So a really positive outlook for the leaders. I think that's the first place to start. Ask the question, show you care.
Ask the question, show you care is absolutely on point, and actually build it into your agendas, build it into your board meetings. It's got to be something that's not played lip service to. It's got to be something that is, it's important. We do people, don't we? That's why I'm here. We're in the people business. Talking about it and talking can be really difficult. And I think I can say this with real authenticity, because being in the industry for over 30 years, I love it. But I never actually felt like I belonged, right? And inclusion to me is a sense of belonging. And that was my fault, because what I realized I was trying to do is I was trying to fit in. So I wouldn't speak openly or out or honestly about certain things. I would join in with perhaps some banter at the water fountain, which I would probably walk away and go, actually, that shouldn't have happened. So I'm really encouraging people to just listen with their ears, listen to the conversations around them, speak openly and speak honestly, talk to everybody in your teams. How you have that conversation is a challenging thing. You know, you don't want to be calling someone into your office and saying, "Hey, tell me about inclusion." It's a challenging conversation to have, but we need to make it a relaxed and supportive environment, and we can create this by talking things through. So really thank you. So we've got loads of people listening here, and I haven't quite got to the two questions I wanted to ask. So I'm really keen to just ask you all brief answer. Okay, we're going to fast forward to the EFA warm-up event 2025. What one thing are we, because I'm hoping that I'll be invited back to host the panel, what one thing are we able to going to be say, this is what we have achieved? What's your gold standard? What do you want to do? Tim, let's start with you.
Yeah, it's fairly clear for us over in the UK, we want to become one of the most welcoming industries. It's easier said than done, but really that's honing in on everyone feeling there's an option or a product or a service for them within fitness and leisure, no matter your background, age, ability. That's
fantastic.
Where we want to be.
Fantastic. I love that. 2025, the most welcoming of industries. Denise?
I think we'd love to be a top 10 fitness brand known for standing up for what we believe in, being able to be held accountable.
Thank you. Accountability. That's a really good point. Isabel, tell us about
that the topic is on the agenda of all audiences worldwide.
Fantastic. And Sally?
We at Basic Fit, we still want to be the fitness chain which is able to make fitness accessible to everyone in Europe, at every corner in Europe. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, and then I always have one more question. So there's a lot of content and there's a lot of elements to this conversation that we've had to unravel. But if you could leave the audience with one thing, one takeaway, one nugget that they would act on or do, what would that be? Denise, I'm gonna go to you first.
Align yourself with brands that have the same values as you.
Okay, Isabel, brilliant.
Maximize joy and connection and minimize fear.
Minimize fear. Nice. Thank you. Tim, what's your one nugget?
Yeah, look, I'll ask the question, who's missing out? Who's not currently coming along? Then you can ask the next question, why is that? Yeah, who's missing out? Who's not accessing your facilities or services?
Thank you, Tim. And finally, Sally?
Well, my call to action would be start putting inclusion as well as diversity and equality on the agenda of the board meeting.
Perfect, thank you. So I've just been, I've got the signal in my ear that it's time to wrap up. And I want to thank you for sharing on this panel. And I'm sure we could have talked for way longer. I want to thank everybody for listening. And before we close, this is the warm-up event, okay? The big event is in November. This is the warm-up to start the conversation. Please feel free to reach out and connect with any of the team or any of us. Just make sure you talk to each other. Let's lead by example and let's make the sector a better place. Thank you very much. Thank you, panel.
Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in today and joining us for our warm-up for the EHFF in November. It has been a brilliant program. We're extremely thankful for all of the speakers that have been addressing key topics of our industry today and speaking about the different pillars of EuropeActive's manifesto, defining our vision towards 2025. It has been a strategic priority for EuropeActive during the pandemic, during the lockdowns, and since the beginning of Corona, to provide our sector with key insight, expertise, and knowledge through our educational webinars that we have had on for our stakeholders, and that you can find online on the EuropeActive YouTube channel. A particular goal in that regard has been for us to make sure that particularly our smaller and medium-sized stakeholders, members, and partners have access to the highest level of expertise and knowledge to adapt their business models in accordance with the new realities of COVID-19. Another thing that we're really happy about is that we've had a very diverse lineup of speakers today, which we'll also have during our EHFF program in November. I would like to thank the EuropeActive team and the board for supporting us in this regard, and for the teams for working so hard on realizing this great program, the warm-up today and the program for November, for the EHFF in November. We'd like to thank our President's Councils, the biggest chains, the leading chains in Europe, and the biggest suppliers and leading suppliers in digital and tech companies that are part of our President's Councils that have generously supported our setup and our program and our broadcasting today, and who will also be supporting our program in November. And without further ado, I'm very honored to hand over to our EHFF host, Jennifer Halsall, who's with us today on site in Brussels.
Thank you, Andreas. I'm really, really excited about the program that we've just seen today, but the warm-up is actually not over. There's an on-demand warm-up, actually 4 on-demand warm-up sessions that are coming your way in the coming weeks, and I want to give you a little sneak peek at what those are going to be. The first one is going to be a fireside chat talking about the future of group exercise. It's moderated by Emma Berry and will feature Amira Polak, Kirsty Ongrove, Amy Smith, and it's going to be a very juicy conversation, so don't miss it. The next on-demand session is a panel on standards. So we're going to start talking about the rise of the health specialist position and the evolution of the personal trainer's position. And that's going to be moderated by Julian Berryman, and it's going to feature Michelle Delcourt and Krista Scott-Dixon, as well as our EREP's ambassador, Anna Bogdanova. There's also a health panel coming your way. We're going to talk about the Safe Active Study update and the effect of mental health on well-being. That's going to be moderated by Alfonso Jimenez and featuring Voljo Vucevic and Dr. Iman Rashid, who will also, you'll see again on the EHFF, talking about the effect of mental health in our society today. The last on-demand panel will be the community panel for the European Week of Sport and the Be Active Day, which is coming up in the next couple of weeks. That's going to be led by EuropeActive's own Lucas de Klerk. Now, EHFF is around the corner, and I'm really, really excited that some of us are going to be able to come together again in person, because I've just reflected on the past year and a half. I've been 99% work from home, and it's so nice to get away from the screen. Now I'm talking to you in the screen, but it's nice to be away from the screen and be able to see real people in real time again. So I hope that we get to see some of you on November 3rd in Cologne. We have a really phenomenal lineup that I'm so proud to be a part of, to be hosting. And like a lot of the other presentations that you've seen, everything will continue to line up with the 4 pillars of the sectorial manifesto. So as I'm about to explain, the first pillar that will kick off for the EHFF will be the health pillar. And each of the pillars have their own activators that are specialists in that pillar, and Alfonso Jimenez will be the co-host for the introduction to health. And we are going to see presentations from the European Commission, Commissioner Maria Gabriel, as well as the World Health Organization. We'll be hearing from Dr. Fiona Bull. Dr. Iman Rashid will talk about mental health and well-being in the digital age. That's a hot topic for everybody right now, because we're Zombies at this point. And Barbara Klein is going to remind us about the forgotten generations, the Generation X's and the Boomers. We're finally not going to talk about the millennials. We're going to move on to the community pillar, and Tony Stone is going to host the community pillar. We're going to start talking about sustainable growth for the planet and your business, and Andrea Orsag will take us through that. And Catherine Edmonds, Rachel Young, who you just saw and probably got a ton of energy from, Tony Stone, Sally Marone you'll see again, and Micah Kumstil will talk about inclusivity and equality in our sector. Then we're going to talk about the standards pillar, and Anna Bogdanova will be our co-host for the standards pillar. Julian Berryman will facilitate a panel talking about rebuilding the sector through standards. And Muriel Wagner will talk about assuring quality with the SIN standards for fitness facilities. There's a lot of work that's been done there in the past few years that more of us need to know more about, because it will really help our sector professionalize and continue to progress quickly. And then Anna Bogdanova will talk about how you can get your staff on the EREP's register, which is so important for the professionalization of our sector and the professionals in it. last but certainly not least, how could we leave out digital? We haven't. So Natalia Karbasova is going to be the host for the digital part of the EHFF. Ian Mullane will come back at us and talk about the COVID-19 catalyst and what that means for our digital future, because we just continue to pivot and evolve as the situation does. And the last panel conversation in the digital part will be a really interesting and spicy one that I think we've been having for a while in some of the back rooms. It's intermediaries and aggregators in the fitness industry. What does that mean, and how can we work together to get more people more active more often? And that will actually round us off for the EHFF, and then it'll be time to get together and have a nice meal and a glass of wine and finally be social again. So I'm really, really super stoked about this program, and I hope you are as well. If you can't join us in person, please be sure to register online. Mark your calendars, sign up today. Can't wait to see you there.
See you in November, right?
Yes.